Hello, Mr. Andy here. We're into final projects in 101, and there are two things that we're going to take a look at. In this first video, we're going to talk a bit about the axle drawing, and the second video, we'll take a look at pulling the assembly together. Now, the axle drawing, I have the geometry up here. I have not started dimensioning it yet because we have some decisions to make. And what I'd like to show you is I'm going to bring in a B-size title block and border because we want to print this 11 by 17. So we're going to go to Insert, and we're going to browse and grab the B-size inch drawing, and I'll just hit OK here. And if we look at this now on the screen here, I think you'd agree with me that that axle shaft, those two views, they look pretty tiny on that B-size sheet. And it'd be kind of nice, because this is a small part, it'd be nice if we printed this larger than full scale. So what I'd like to do then is print this drawing at a scale of 2:1. Okay, so it would be double size. Make it easier to read because it's a small part. So I want you to consider this for a minute. If I bring in this title block and border at full size, excuse me, when I print it, I'm going to double it, then the title block and border is going to get twice as big. It's going to go right off the paper. So in order to make this work, when I bring in the title block and border, I have to bring that in at half size. Then when I print it at double, it'll be back to normal. So I can do it right here. I can just type a S for scale and hit enter and put in 0.5 and hit enter. And you can see now my border is half as big as it was before and fits the part much more nicely. So I'm just going to drop it right about there. And I'm going to leave all this default information, except make sure in your drawing scale you put in the scale at which you're going to print it, which would be 2:1. That means 2 inches on the printed drawing is really 1 inch in the actual part. 2 inches in the real world, 1 inch on the part. All right, we'll hit OK. All right, so I have my title block and border in. Now there are a few other things that we have to do if we're going to print this at 2:1. Normally in an inch drawing, our dimension spacing is ½ an inch. Again, everything's going to double when we print it. So if we space it at a ½ inch, when we print it, it's going to be a whole inch apart, which is too big. So I want to set my grid to half the normal size. So grid, and instead of ½ an inch there, we'll set it at 0.25. Then the other thing I have to do, I'm going to go ahead and put a dimension in here. So let's switch to the dimension layer. And I just want to put a dimension in here for the length of the shaft portion here and place it up about ¼ inch. And as you look at this, a couple things. Notice that the gap looks pretty big for the size of the dimension and geometry. And the text, if we compare it to the title block text, notice how big that text is relative to the text in the title block. And even our arrowheads are too big. So in our dimensions, we need to scale down all of the size values, not the number. We want that to say 3 inches. But we want to scale down the size of the arrowheads and the size of the gaps and the height of the text. And we can do that just in one single option. So we're going to go to Dimension Style, and I'm going to click on Modify, and I'm going to click on Fit. We're on the right tab here. And the scale for dimension features, again, that's the arrowhead sizes, gap sizes, text heights, etc. We're going to set, again, to 0.5. That will make all of the text half as big as we want it. And arrowheads, see how much smaller that is now? And that's the appropriate look. So now as I place dimensions in here, it should give me 1/8 inch sizes, or I'm sorry, half size, and then when I print it, everything will get doubled. Okay, the number will say 3, but in the printout this will actually be 6 inches long. Everything will be twice size, and that's why we have to put that 2 to 1 in the title block. So that's how we set up that drawing so we can print it at 2 to 1. Finally, when you do print it, so I'm going to do a zoom extents here. When you do print this drawing, so let's click on print, and I have the wrong printer set up here, but that'll be all right. When you do print it, you got to change your scale to 2 to 1, and then check your preview, make sure it fills out the entire page, but it should be extents, 11 by 17 is the sheet, and 2 to 1 for your scale, so it'll double the size of the printout. Okay, so that's everything for the axle, and check the second video if you want to see how we pull all this together into an assembly. And enjoy.